Hello, hockey fans of all ages, shapes, and sizes. We got a crisp or a brisk morning here in the Okanagan. Here's the Okanagan Lake. She's a beauty, isn't she? I know sometimes I have hesitation about revealing my location. I'll just say it. If you want to come to the Penticton Arena, I'm bartending there. Come see me at the vault, and maybe I'll be pouring your beer. I'm in housekeeping there as well, and probably eventually concert setup. We've signed excuse me, like a celebrity waiver, so no photos or selfies, but get to kind of meet some cool people, bands and stuff coming through. Bryan Adams is coming up on I'm pretty sure the show's sold out on the 11th, and then I was up in Kamloops for a little roadie a few days ago. Sorry, my eyes are watering. It's pretty crisp. Like I said, it's a cool day, one of the first cool days after back to school. Here in the Okanagan, it's beautiful. I moved from Ontario, and I don't think I'm ever moving back. Anyways, with all that said, and yeah, I met Freddie, the coach of the Penticton V's. So shout out to my Uncle Darren, who played for the he went to the Hartford Whalers training camp, which is now the Carolina Hurricanes. And he actually signed an NHL contract, maybe an ELC or the equivalent back then, I'm not sure. Different bargaining agreements and stuff with the Players Association. But anyway, shout out to him for saying, hey, go for a minor league team if you want to get to the NHL. He was suggesting like Kamloops Blazers or Kelowna Rockets or something like that in the WHL. So the Penticton V's are in the BCHL. Anyhow, what I wanted to talk about today was Gregy going for a PTO in Toronto. And by the way, I saw Jumbo with his amazing toque, and looked like he looked pretty slick with his Sharks hoodie there, just walking on the beach. It's a little unstable in the sand here. Yeah, it was so good to see him smiling out on the ice with the boys. Maybe he's getting into some coaching now or some stuff like that with Patty. I have no idea, but love to see it. Anyway, so Gregy signs a PTO with the Leafs, and I'm really big on this guy, really high on this guy. Not that many people watch my podcast anyways, so just if you come to the arena, don't be weird. Yeah, so Gregy signs the PTO with the Leafs, and I've talked to a few like analysts through Instagram. Hetty's such a cool guy, Brett Hedican, amazing announcer with the Sharks. Anyways, I've talked to a few guys in oh, by the way, his Hetty packs are pretty kick-ass as well. I told him it reminded me of collecting the pins. My mother and father and my sister would remember this. We had these little caps, and we'd have all the pins in them from collecting and trading with other teams in tournaments and stuff. I always loved that, and collecting the little badges and stuff as a kid. So totally lots of random thoughts on this one today, but I wanted to add a little more personality and flair to it. So anyhow, yeah, Gregy. I think this guy's got a huge ceiling, pretty big upside, in my opinion. I think that it's quite possible that if he's paired up with like top 6, top 9 skill guys, that he can plateau or ceiling at around 25-30 goals. And that probably seems like a stretch if you say, oh, he got a hat trick against Arizona, it's Arizona, womp womp. But by the way, Arizona's looking way better this year. I don't think they're tanking anymore. The Sharks, I don't know, on paper they look a lot better, but everyone's saying they're gonna tank it up like massive this year without Carlson, which, seeing the pain last year, I think we got one more year of pain, and then the Fresh Bay Prince and some of the other Quentin Musty, I'm massive on that. That was an amazing pickup for the Timo Meier trade. Forever linked to that. So he was an absolute steal in the draft at 26. And I think this Haltonen kid is a pretty lethal shot. And my former town, London Knights, met Dale Hunter after a game. Such a cool guy. Had a beer. I won't say the place, but if you know, you know. Yeah, this Haltonen kid, I think he's going to really take off in the OHL, and I believe he was either a captain or an assistant on his team. So for those who know me in my hockey sense, I'm huge on leadership. That's why Henry Thrun being the captain of Harvard, Barclay Goodrow scoring like arguably one of the biggest goals in San Jose Sharks history for that massive comeback against Vegas. He was a captain of his team. I want to say Brampton Battalion. I could be way wrong on that, sorry. Don't necessarily know all the guys' junior stuff, but I'm going to be paying more attention now with the Penticton Vs. Of course, they had Bradley Nadeau in the draft last year, which is pretty cool. Sorry for the sunlight. I'm trying to block it with my big head. Yeah, so Gregy with the PTO. I'm huge on this guy. I believe he's got to, in the off season, hopefully he's worked on his puck possession and stick handling. I found oftentimes last year he would sort of dump and chase, but he wasn't good with the puck retrievals. Honest assessment here. Hopefully he's worked on that a little bit with doing some moves and some stick handling at speed. I think the guy's like an absolute laser, like a elite NHL speed demon. So to me, there's no way this guy doesn't make the NHL somewhere. And I was sad to see that he wasn't part of the picture in San Jose, but he had a lot of chances there. So, you know, I see with him, he's got a lot of finish to him. He's a shooter, and I think the role that if he's put in like a bottom, like sort of the bottom six or like fourth line role checking role, they're not utilizing this guy. Like I saw him snap one from the slot, top cheese. So I really feel like if they utilize him, he's a shooter, and if he's got with good playmakers, he can score a lot of goals. I think he's got that potential with his speed. He can get around guys. He can get to openings. Just that real quick first few steps. And like I said, he's almost like a Martin Kaut kind of guy, like that elite NHL speed that you don't find with all guys too often. So my last video, I wanted to touch on that briefly because I looked at some of the numbers from Cap Friendly. And I played this scenario where potentially if Willie Nylander is traded at the deadline, now you might say that would be stupid or foolish, but if they got a guy like Logan Clutchure, congrats Logan with the baby this summer. I believe he got married. So interestingly enough, when I saw this Gregy thing in Toronto, I was like, okay, there's a photo of Gregy with Ferrari at a winery in Napa, I believe, and another one with Logan Clutchure is my nickname for him because he's, I don't know, his points are close to 100 plus in the playoffs now. He scored 2 goals for that miraculous comeback with Vegas. This guy is absolutely elite stud in the playoffs, and unfortunately San Jose has not been in a position for a very long time to use his talents in the playoffs. So I think it's not necessarily a waste of talent. Maybe you could even call it that. I don't know. But he signed on for $8 million. So the reason I speculate this trade, it's kind of interesting coming together that Gregy most likely will make the Leafs. I'm almost positive he will. They don't have enough depth at the third and fourth line. So I'm almost positive he's going to make the team. He will be an impact guy if they utilize him for his speed and his shooting. Definitely on the power play, etc. He's been snake bitten with a lot of goals and stuff. But yeah, that hat trick kind of showed me there's some upside there. And some of the other shots that I've seen from the slot, just high, like top cheese, like no shot in heck that he's scoring this goal and then it goes in. Almost like a hurdle, or Carlson would do those kind of things in close and surprise guys with his elite shot. So yeah, so there's a picture, I believe, from Logan's wedding with Gregy, who is Noah Gregor, by the way, for those people who are like, who the hell's Gregy? That's what Ferraro, I think, and some of the guys call him Gregy. So that's his nickname, I guess. All NHLers kind of have a nickname. Jumbo Joe Thornton was always big on nicknames. He'd call guys something and then it would always stick. The leader being he is what he is. So there's a photo, I think it's Logan's wedding or something, or a party, and it's Logan, Mr. Clutch, and Ferraro and Gregy. So I was like, this is kind of interesting, because my speculation was that if they can't get Nylander done, I truly believe Nylander will get 10 and a half, maybe even, I don't think 11, but like as high as 11 probably is his, like if Marner's going to get 12 million, Nylander's saying, what the heck, like why am I being paid less than 7 million right now, almost 7 million. So yeah, so I think he does produce in the playoffs, but not like a guy like Clutchure. So if the Leafs are like, we're in cup or bust mode, like Edmonton has claimed they are, and they want to win, I truly believe if they pulled off a deal, and I think San Jose wants Nylander for like the long-term rebuilding picture. I know they tried to get him with Carlson as a key piece, but I don't think the Leafs were wanting to do that deal. But if the Leafs feel that Nylander's going to walk after the season, if the Sharks have a lot of cap space, they have, I think, 3.8, 4 million right now. I don't really understand the deadline cap space too much. It says they got like 18.5 mil. I don't really know what that, I got to look into that a little bit more, why they get a little bit more deadline cap space. It might be to like navigate bigger trades like that, and guys that go on LTIR, etc. So I'm not exactly sure. Like I said, I'll look into that a little bit more, but I speculate that a guy like Logan Clutchure, plus a Ferraro might be like, a Huberdeau Uyghur for Tkachuk. Now, it didn't work out for Calgary, but I know the core DNA of a guy like Logan, that this guy wants to win. He's the ultimate competitor, and he shows up in the playoffs. Like, he's been so clutch for them all those playoff years. And like I said, it's been a waste of talent on the books. I don't really see, like, if this happens, I think I speculated that Hurdle would get the captaincy, because I thought the captaincy would go to Carlson next, and he's clearly out of the picture in Pittsburgh now. I wish him luck. I was so sad to see that happen, because I'm a huge Sharks fan. But I was a Patriots fan all these years with Tom Brady, and then I stopped following because I'm sort of a fair weather NFL football kind of guy, and I stopped following after he retired. So I always wondered, do I follow a team for a guy like Jumbo? And then Carlson joined on, so I was like, once Jumbo is not playing for them, I can watch him because of Carlson. But now I'm so invested as far as like some of the exciting draft picks they got, etc. coming in. I think this San Jose team is going to be dynamite. In probably 3 to 4 years, their window is going to open up. So you got Vlasic at 7 mil, Ferraro at 3.25 mil, and Logan at 8 mil. So I don't know how you swing the Vlasic one. And I'll say this, another thing I wanted to touch on was the Sharks jerseys. I see the jerseys going up in the rafters in this order. Patty, of course, is already up there. Jumbo's next. Probably Pav's next. And then Most likely Vlasic next. You could argue for Burnsy potentially at the same time as that. He's such a beloved Shark. I don't think Carlson, now that he got traded, he has some amazing memories in Sharks fans, but I don't think, you know, the 4 or 5 years is enough to put his jersey in the rafters. Logan Couture's jersey will go in the rafters for sure. And I believe even if he got traded to the Leafs at the deadline and goes on and wins a Stanley Cup in Toronto, that might even cement him as a Hall of Famer. So I think there's interesting stuff here. I believe Vlasic's the kind of guy that is a bit of a homebody. He loves his dogs. He loves staying at home and stuff. I kind of see him, like I said in my last video, staying with the Sharks for the whole time, just, you know, to be a one-team player. His jersey will go into the rafters for sure. I think even regardless if he got traded too, as well at the deadline. But I don't know, you'd have to kind of gauge with him. But as I speculated, Logan being a London boy and Ferrari being a Toronto boy, now that they know Gregy, oh man, could be interesting come the deadline. I would love absolutely to see William Nylander in a Sharks jersey for 7, if not 8 years if it's a sign and trade. You know, even if they paid him $88 million, 8 years times 11, I know that seems like gasp, that's insane, whatever. I think, you know, if you have Logan's 11 off the books, I think Hurdle would be okay, because Hurdle having William Nylander on his line, it'll take him maybe closer to 100 points like he probably deserves. And I love Hurdle, except sad Hurdle. I love Ninja Hurdle that's angry and spicy. And the guy's like one of the kindest human beings on earth. And I know that he's competitive too, because he has a spicy side when he gets going. So I just wanted to say that the trade deadline for me, you know, you've seen it in the past where it was like Wendell Clark and a few of these other ones. Like, they have fan favorites, and I know Willie is a polarizing character in Toronto, but a lot of people love him, and he will be really, really difficult to pry away from the Leafs. But I just look at their core 4, core 5, and I say, how do you even do this? Especially after Matthews at 13 something. I think the cap's going up 1 or 2 million. How do you pull this off? It's a mathematical improbability, I think, at this point, that they're, you know, they can say all they want about, you know, Willie's a cool dude, he's waiting to the last minute. You're going to see media kind of slamming him a little bit now that Auston Matthews is done. Oh, he didn't sign first, he didn't take a discount. If I'm William Nylander, I mean, there is the side I hear about, you know, if he signs for 9, like, stay with the Leafs or whatever. But if I'm looking at any other team in the league, to have an 85-point scorer, 40-goal scorer on their team on the wing, on the top line, that could be worth it. And now I had speculated about Matthews maybe going to Arizona or like some other teams, just kind of some fun trade scenarios based off Brian Burke's comment 4 or 5 years ago that the guys at TSN touched on the other day, which was really cool to hear. I always wondered where that kind of started from. So we shall see where Auston Matthews goes. I mean, I kind of thought, like, could you imagine if Matthews got traded to San Jose? Literally, that would rebuild the entire franchise. Like, it would just, it hit the go button. So I think a guy like William Nylander, as a huge Sharks fan, I would be stoked if they brought this guy in, even at 10 and a half, 11 million, I think. I don't think the Leafs can pull it off, to be honest. So I joked with some people and I said, this is the time you take the Leafs dead carcass that the Panthers swiped in the playoffs, and you try to go for them when they're vulnerable. And obviously this is a business. There's only 32 teams in the league, so you got 3% odds of winning the cup every year. It's a gauntlet. It's very tough to win. And, you know, when guys offer sheet other players, doesn't really look too nice, does it? So I would say these general managers, I think they all have a group chat together. So they're not out to sort of eat the carcass that the Panthers created in the playoffs usually. But there are some opportunities there. And I think, like I said, just from a sheer mathematical number, Willie's in at 7, and the Leafs are like overcapped by $2 million already, I think. So what the heck are they going to do in order to, win the cup next year or whatever? Maybe they trade Nylander for Couture and Ferrari, like, before the season even starts. Could you imagine that? I think Logan's probably got a full no move clause. Like, they'd have to wheel and deal and talk back and forth, and it'd be, I touched about Logan being a father now, and this is tough on people's families, right? Like, you got guys like Schenner and Ryan O'Reilly going to Nashville for lifestyle choices for their family, right? They got to get their kids in school. I think Logan, obviously, I would imagine his wife would stay back in San Jose. He's probably got a beautiful place there. He could get he could buy a condo in Toronto or London or something. So probably in Toronto, like, he's from London. He could buy a condo for a few mil on the water in Toronto and, play there for 3-4 years. And, whenever he's in the West Coast, could go see family and stuff. This would be hard, right? I don't imagine his family would relocate. Now, Ferraro's got family already. I call him Ferrari, Mario Ferrari. I don't know if he likes that nickname, but I love his first 2 to 3 steps. He revs up the engine and goes after guys like a fat kid on a Smartie. Hopefully that's funny and not offensive. He just seems to smother guys in the corner, and I hope he gets back to that style of play. I really miss that about him, those first 2-3 steps. So hopefully he fires up the Ferrari engine. He is a locker room guy. He's been an assistant for the Sharks, and he's always a cheerful, like I said, locker room guy, and he's a massive shot blocker. So I think the Leafs D definitely needs some more, and I don't really see Vlasic going there, but you never know, right? It's like people are all motivated differently. Maybe he's one of those guys that on the Leafs he'd be like back to his Olympic form, I just think with the Leafs core, I haven't heard much about Gio, if he's coming back. And you got Muzzin, who's on IR. I don't think he's coming back. You got TJ Brody, but you lost Justin Hall, who I think is pretty underrated whipping boy for the Leafs fans. I like him as a player. He's also a righty shot too. So I don't know. I guess Detroit saw something in him, because I think they hired him between 3 and 4. So the last thing I wanted to say is, so the cap space at the trade deadline, you got to plan for your future, right? So they got the Fresh Bay Prince, Will Smith. You got William Eklund, you got Quentin Musty, and some of these, you got to kind of project, what are some of these guys' contracts going to look like? Are they going to be an absolute superstar out of their ELC? Like, can you project that? It's hard to do, and you want to leave enough cap space in a rebuilding team. Like, you saw how much cap space the Blackhawks and the Anaheim Ducks had, etc. I don't think San Jose has quite as much, but they do have a lot of guys on expiring contracts. So I think, even more interestingly, if they wanted to sweeten the pot and get Nylander at the deadline or sooner, you could trade some of these guys that came into San Jose as a part of the Karlsson trade, right? But what I wanted to say about Barabanov, people who follow my semcast.com, he's one of my favorite players, and I saw him come in for the Suomela trade. I was like, I don't know about this guy, but I remember watching the first few games he played with his kind of 9-to-5 skating, like when you I'll go down, it's like, oh, I can't. Anyways, that was pretty stupid. I'll just maybe do this. Maybe you can see my ugly feet there in the sand. But it's like that 9-to-5 turning ability, and Will Smith showed glimpses of that as well too. It's kind of a new modern skating that comes from figure skating, and Jeff Skinner was always amazing with that as well too. So yeah, seeing Barabanov score as many points as he did, I think most likely my gut says he's going to get about 5.5. It'll be close to the LeBanc number, somewhere in between Hoffman and Granlund is the likeliness of it if he just joined the team. But because he has a team history and he works well chemistry-wise with Couture and Hurdle and stuff like that, at center for him, and I think he got close to 60-70 points. Very impressive, 15 goals or something, but he's a really, really good playmaker, which William Eklund is. Hopefully he's looking thick and heavy, so I hope he makes the team out of camp. I think there's a lot, just to finish my point on Barabanov, so I think most likely he would come in at that LeBanc kind of number. And is LeBanc moving at the trade deadline? Who knows, right? To a team that wants goals for. So I think San Jose is in a great spot, either now or later, in potentially acquiring William Nylander and moving some pieces to Toronto in order to make them Stanley Cup ready. Like, I would love to see Couture and obviously like Matthews and Marner and some of those guys. Morgan Riley had a great playoff last year. Seeing some of those guys raise the cup this year. And I think I'm going to go with my prediction of Toronto versus the Devils. Toronto will beat them, and they'll face the Edmonton Oilers or the Vegas Golden Knights again, because they really lost one player, Riley Smith. I think they locked up everybody else. So, who knows what that'll do to their team. One guy often means a lot. So every team is kind of shuffling pieces around. And yeah, Barabanov, I see as likely, if they sign him long term, they'll get him at like 5.5. If they go short term, 2-3 years, maybe it's $6 million. Who knows? I think he will get a little bit more than Hoffman, LeBanc, and Granlund, because he's proven with the team and he's shown loyalty and taken a pretty big discount to what his point production has been. Now you can argue it's a crappier team and he didn't make it because of the Leafs, blah blah blah, but he's also really young, and when he came to San Jose he made like an immediate impact on the top line. So I think this is what you get when you try out players, and this is where I was going with Bordelot. So I believe Bordelot is a sleeper. I believe that he has the capability of potentially being a second line center. And if they did trade or dealt Logan, Logan could do what Jumbo did and go down to the third line and just tear up teams. People who've watched this podcast know I'm a huge believer in the third line. So I've never been a fan of like saying this is this line, the first, second, third line or whatever. But if you have to get me on it, the third line is the most important line in hockey, especially in the playoffs. So you can really destroy teams based on that depth. And I don't think the Leafs have a strong third line right now, to be perfectly honest, unless they kind of stack it with Domi and Bertuzzi and maybe like a Yarncroke or even put Marner down there and put Nyes up on the top line with Matthews and Yarncroke or something like that. Who knows, right? I think where teams do that and they become creative in the playoffs and they're able to basically overload the lower lines and outskill them, out-hustle them, out-check them, you're getting offensive zone chances. Whereas, if you have just two lines, as they've showed with the Leafs in the playoffs, you just shadow the top guys. They do literally nothing in certain rounds that you have a heavy checking team like Florida. They were like a dump and chase checking team with Bob and net, a hot goalie, beat you. So, and like I've said a couple times now, Tampa Bay is they got 2 cups, so you can't really say much, but they're definitely on the downswing. And I think the Bruins are kind of on the downswing as well too. So be interesting to see, does Buffalo make it? Does Ottawa make it? I think Buffalo's a little bit closer in my mind. They had like a 4 or 5 year rebuild, like, you know, the Leafs did before Matthews, or, you know, like the Sharks are doing now, like the Habs. I learned too, I'm reading this book, and then I'm past 30 minutes here, which is one of my longer ones. It was for les habitants, like the inhabitants, the people, you know, en français. I'm reading the book For the Love of Beer and Hockey, I think it's called. It's the Eric Molson story. Really, really good. Just on the beach here in between or before my bartending shifts and stuff at the arena. Like I said, if you're going to come by and say hi, don't be weird, but I'm not hiding where I am or who I am. I think that we need more leadership and people to stand up. I heard some crap coming about mask mandates and stuff, like, please, for the love of God, are we going to be that stupid and do this all over again? I don't know. I think it's like, call it misinformation or malinformation now. Like, I think a lot of this stuff is bogus, and they tried to kind of institute some of these mandates, which aren't actually laws. It's like, you can't do anything. If somebody refuses to wear it, you literally can't do anything. You can maybe refuse them as a company policy from being a customer, but why would you do that if you're a greedy corporation? Anyways, I don't want to go all tinfoil conspiracy at the end of this one, because it's been a pretty good one, but please, for the love of God, like, let people wear masks if they want. Don't make me wear one. I will refuse, and I don't want to go through this circus again. For, like, I asked some younger people at the grocery store, I said, have you heard anything? And they're like, no, we got to go back to, like, our normal lives again, you know? We got to go back to normal. It's like, it feels like we're coming out of a pretty silent depression. I heard a term which I really like. It's interesting because you had the silent generation and then the Great Depression for them. So kind of mingling those terms or whatever, somebody came up with, it's pretty brilliant, whoever came up with silent depression. Yeah, with COVID and that, we locked down for 3 freaking years. And I think, you know, I don't ever want to talk politics because I absolutely learn too much. And they're all bought and paid for. They're all, you know, pretty vile from a moral standpoint. And I think that a lot of this stuff is because there is literally a president of the United States who should be in a home. And it's for mail-in ballots. They're trying to pull this back in, and I don't know how decisions are made at the city level, like local chambers of commerce, where that information comes from. But if people really want to look into this, who's pulling the strings, like the Wizard of Oz, just look into who is telling the city hall to cheer for BLM or to put a Ukraine flag up. And, like, I love Ukrainian people. I like Russian people too. I was one of the people who stood by Ovi and some of these other people on social media and said, what are you blaming Ovi for a war for? The guy's, like, been in America for a decade. One of the best, most prolific goal scorers in the NHL, a lovable guy, good family guy. You know, get the heck out of here, like, blaming him or hating on him. Like, that's just, you're like a brainwashed slave at this point if you're, you know, blaming a Russian player for the war. Like I said, I like Ukrainians, but never put the Ukrainian flag higher than the Canadian flag in my country, ever. Like, you come here, Canada's flag is at the top. You know, maybe because we're in NATO, we support certain countries in a war. I don't necessarily agree. I think Canada has always been like a Switzerland, and Switzerland's always maintained its independence, and you know, it's so pristine and beautiful, and that's the way I like Canada to be, is pristine and beautiful and not siding with anybody and being neutral and helping. We're a country that are kind, moral, maybe passive aggressive people, but we're generally good-hearted, and we go in as foreign aid, and help countries. And I don't like us siding with one country or the other. I don't care the backstory. And for those people who are if you're shaking your head at this point saying like, this guy knows jack squat, I've seen the Maidan Square documentary. I've seen, you know, the corrupt politicians and the money laundering and stuff from 2013, 2014 and in Ukraine. And like, I'm not there. I don't know what's going on. So with COVID, the war, you hear all this rhetoric, and I pray to God that it's all hyperbole, misinformation, malinformation. But I do know from my observation that it's not hard to see. There's a crisis in the media, and it's all for political campaigns. And when you're fucking with people's lives for real, like what happened with COVID, you know, younger, healthy people being told they need to get jabbed and wear masks for old people. Like, if you got jabbed or got the vax, whatever you want to call it, I call it jabbed, jabbies, stabbies. If you got that, why do you care what someone else does? If you feel like it protects you, which studies proved it doesn't, and also if you feel like, you know, supporting some country in a war or whatever is what you want to do, you know, don't do it around me, because I'm neutral. I like all people. I love all people based on their merit, their personality, and who they are. If you're a good person, that's all that matters to me. And I don't like taking sides, like I said. So please, for the love of God, no more COVID BS. Like, I'm bartending. I don't want to be walking around in a mask, you know, trying to talk to people and what? I can't hear you. What? No shit. I'm a healthy person. Why am I being asked to mask up as a healthy person who hasn't been sick in like the last 10 years? Maybe like a little one through the pandemic, but it was probably because I'm inside all the time and not out breathing the fresh air. You know, you put a mask on and you can't even breathe properly, and it lowers your oxygen intake. You know, I saw people with the forest fires here, old people wearing it, you know, outside, and it's like, yeah, fine. Maybe if they're feeling like recirculating the carbon dioxide that's going to their brain is better than sucking in smog, maybe that's okay. It's just people's choice, right? Don't mess with people's choice, and don't put virtues on other people as this is their responsibility for you. Make your choice and be happy with it and be done with it. That's all I want to say. This turned into like a real tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist type podcast. And by the way, that conspiracy theorist word or phrase came from the CIA to discredit people who are actually trying to tell you the truth. So kind of funny, isn't it? The irony. Anyways, maybe even me talking about this will ruin my chances at getting to the NHL or working for a team someday. Because if they force jabs to work there or, you know, mandate stuff like that, I have a really high moral set, and I'm not willing to bend or break for anybody. And yeah, it has been a couple of pretty rough years, but it got me out here. I would love to be in California, in San Jose in the future, and I would love to work for that team in like a Jonah Hill type Moneyball role for doing statistics and numbers. Shout out Gilly and Rocky. These are my opinions, not these guys, but they were my math buddies in high school. We were a year ahead, and these guys were smarter than me too, so I really looked up to them. Even though I was like a 90 plus student, maybe 94, 95 one year, and these guys were like 99, 100. So shout out to those guys being the math guys that they are. Sorry for the sun in your eyes. I'm trying to block it. Yeah, that's it for today. Go Sharks go. Go Leafs go. And will Willie Nylander be a Shark? And will Logan Clutchure win a cup in Toronto, maybe with Ferrari or Vlasic, or maybe one of the other guys that the Sharks brought in on 1-year contracts? We'll see. Let's go.